In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to write research proposal. And I'm going to break things down, share useful tips and insight that will be helpful to you in writing your own research proposal. And I'm not going to assume that you have any knowledge of how to write a proposal. I'm going to tell you tips, insights, and key things that you need to know regarding research proposal. And as someone that's written a number of research proposals for my study, for my PhD, for my master's, you are going to actually learn one or two things that will be useful to you whenever you also want to write your own research proposal. Let's get right into it. The very first thing, what is a research proposal? Research proposal is just a structured document that shows to us what kind of research you want to do. What do you really want to do? So a research proposal is important because it gives you that opportunity to think about your work before you even go to the field to collect data or before you even start your research. That's why we don't joke with it in academia. We want to see your proposal so we understand what you want to do, whether it is useful, whether some people can give you certain feedback to improve your work, whether someone can tell you, improve this methodology, remove this, remove that, or in fact, if you are using it to apply for grants, whether your work is fundable or not. Some people can make that decision through your research proposal. So research proposal is basically what do you really want to do in, let's say, 1,000 to 2,000 words. So a research proposal is a structured document that outlines your proposed research study, that details the problem, the objective, the methodology, and the significance of your work. It serves as a blueprint for conducting your research, helping us to clarify the approach, whether the goal, the feasibility, and the approach. So it is useful in academia, in research, for us to know what you really want to work on. First important consideration when it comes to research proposal is that you need to understand, is there any format that the institution or where you want to submit your research proposal to wants from you? Is there any specific format? It is very, very important to know this because different institutions, they have their own format. For instance, if you're applying for a PhD in a university, they might have a particular format that they want you to follow. If you're applying for research ethics, if you're applying for a grant, they might ask you to submit a particular in a particular format, in a particular structured way. So that's why the very first thing, whenever you are asked to write a research proposal, whether for research ethics, whether for research grants, whether for your PhD application, whether for your master's application, whether for your undergraduate degree, the very first thing that you have to ask is that, is there any format? So in most cases, there's going to be a kind of format that they want you to follow, or whether they have a certain word limit. For instance, they can tell you that they want proposal of 1,000 to 2,000 words. So it is very, very important that you know the format. So once you know the format, you'll be able to structure it using that format. But every research proposal generally must conform to a particular, must be able to give us a particular answer that we want about your research, which is we want to understand what you really want to do, how do you want to do it, which problem do you want to solve, and whether it is significant or not. People should be able to read your proposal, no matter the structure, no matter the format. We should be able to pick that out from your proposal. For instance, this is an example of a structured format that a university actually wants when you want to submit research proposal to them. This is what they want, and this is what they want you to follow. But if you look at all these components, it is key things that you have to see whenever you are writing a research proposal. Please always remember to ask, is there any format? Is there any structure that they want you to follow? Because that would be useful to you in structuring your research proposal. So while research proposal format varies, it depends on the institution, it depends on what you're applying for, whether it is grant, whether it's for ethics application for your research, it depends on what they want from you. Always check the specific guideline. Always remember that. So, but there's a general format of research proposal. That there's a general format, there are key things that we need to be able to pick out whenever we are reading your proposal. Whenever we are reading your research proposal, there are key things, there are key information that should not be missing, no matter the format, no matter the layout that you are using. And the very first thing, of course, you have to tell us the title. There's going to be a title page that will detail the research title, your name, your affiliation. Also, there's going to be a session maybe on introduction or background, or you're going to have something on literature review. You're going to have another session on research objectives and questions, research hypothesis in some cases. In fact, after literature review, you can have theoretical framework, and in some cases, you can have the methodology or the method or methods and material, depending on what they actually call it. But we should be able to pick out methodology from your research proposal. Expected outcome and significance should be there, and of course, references. But remember, what is important is that always check if there are any specific format that they actually want from you. But this general format is going to be useful, and that's what I'm going to be using to explain the key things that you always have to remember whenever you're writing research proposal. The very first thing is the title page. Like I said earlier, keep it clear and professional. Your name, the title of your research, and in most cases, the title can change. That's why it is called a proposal. Don't work yourself too much, but try as much as possible to make your research title attractive to people, because remember, it's a proposal. Especially if you are applying for grants, you have to make sure that the title communicates something clear to the reviewer or the reader of your research proposal. So keep the title concise and informative as much as possible. Include essential information in your title page. A title page is just a page with relevant information about the title, your affiliation, your name, your supervisor's name, something like that. But it depends on the format that they actually want from you. But generally, you have to make sure that the title that you are using for your proposal needs to be really clear and communicate what you want to do. Remember, that can change. And also follow the institutional guideline. Like I said, if there's any format that they want from you, follow the structure. Introduction and background. These sometimes you can have a section for introduction, you can have another section for background, depending on the format that they want from you. While for some proposal, they just want the introduction, some just say they want the background, and something like that. But always remember that whenever you're having any format, introduction basically introduce a research topic in a way that people will be able to understand your work easily. If I read your introduction, I should be able to pick out the context and be able to relate with the possible impact or that your work is going to do. So introduction should be able to give us that information. And also, introduction should be able to tell us define the research problem. Clearly state the issue that you want to investigate. It should show in your introduction and background or background. Provide background information. Tell us some key statistics. So the major thing that you always have to remember for this session is that what exactly do we know? What exactly do you really want to do? Which problem do you want to solve? And of course, you can transit deeper and do some form of literature review. So that's why from your introduction and background, I should be able to understand what you really want to do. You should be able to explain to us clearly why your work is important. But generally, the introduction and background actually should be able to communicate three things: the rationale of your research, the justification, and the research problem. So introduction and background should be able to speak to this. And in fact, for some proposal, there's going to be a heading for rationale. Instead of having introduction or background, there's going to be a heading. There's going to be a certain heading for rationale. There's going to be another heading for justification, another one for research problem. So basically, your rationale is why this study is important. Justify to us. Justification, give us some possible research that's been conducted. Give us some evidence-based reasoning or reasons why we should conduct this research. Research problem, clearly state the issue or the gap that your study really wants to address. So the introduction and background should be able to communicate this clearly. Then you can now move to literature review to review what we know. What do we know about this particular topic? Because literature review is basically what is known, and you are leading us back to what is unknown. So a literature review should be able to summarize the existing research on that particular topic, identify the research gaps as well, show how your study fits in. We need to understand, based on what we know before in the literature, how does your study fit in? It is important that you're able to demonstrate that in your literature review. And of course, support it with evidence. And of course, you're able to show why we actually need this study. Literature review can actually also lead you to develop some theoretical framework depending on what you're actually working on. Another thing that is also very, very important is the research objectives and question. Your research objective and question, they're very, very important. And your research objective, you have to try as much as possible to make it specific. You can have 3, you can have 4, depending on what you're working on. And your research question are actually derived from your objectives. So there are a question like that, okay, you're trying to tell us what you want to do in a question like way. So always remember that your research objective needs to be really specific. I should be able to read it and understand what you want to do. Don't make it too broad that people will find it difficult to understand what exactly do you want to do. If anybody is reading your research objective and they're asking you that question that what do you really want to do, then you've not done your job. So try as much as possible to make sure that your research objective is clear, it is specific, it is measurable, and it aligns with the research problem that you've identified. So clarity and focus is what you need whenever you're writing your research objectives and questions. Method. How do you want to do that research? That's what we need in your methodology. We need to be able to read your method and have some understanding of what exactly and how exactly you want to do this research. What is your research design? Are you using qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method? Data collection method. Explain how the data will be gathered. Is this through survey? Is it through interview? Is it through experiment? Is it secondary analysis? Sampling strategy, you explain that to us. Data analysis, ethical consideration. All these things they are highly dependent on the kind of study that you want to do. You have to make that clear. So anybody should be able to understand at least how you want to do your research in a clear, coherent, concise way. Remember, for research proposal, you have word limits. You have about 1,000 to 2,000 depending on the specific guideline that has been laid out for the research proposal that you're writing. But always remember that you have to make sure that your method is clear, because one of the things we want to understand is that, is this research feasible? So you have to be able to convince us and tell us clearly how this research is going to be feasible. And by explaining the methodology, how do you want to do the research? How do you want to answer the research problem clearly? Expected outcome and significance. Of course, you should be able to communicate that. Why is your research important? You should be able to tell us what are the possible or potential impact that your research is going to have. Always remember that you have to be able to think that through. Because why do you want to do that research if it is not going to have any significant impact, or if it's not going to contribute anything to knowledge? Always remember that. You also have to think about that whenever you are coming up with research proposal. References. The key thing about references is that if you follow a particular style, please stick with it. If you are using Harvard, use Harvard throughout. So the key thing about references in research proposal is that make sure that you don't overwhelm us too much with irrelevant references. When you are citing any paper, that paper must end their place. There must be a reason why you are citing that paper, not just for you to make the proposal look lengthy. Remember, the proposal is concise, and you want to try as much as possible to use the most important study. There's some research that if an expert is reading them and you don't cite some key papers on that particular topic, your proposal is going to be rejected, because the researcher that are working in that line has not been cited, and they are already well known. They have a lot of papers, so that means you've not done a very good job. Make sure that you cite at least 5 to 10 papers that are important, that directly contribute to understanding that topic that you're working on. It is very, very important. And any style that you're following, please stick with it. Whether it's Vancouver, whether it's Chicago, whether it's Harvard, whether it's APA, check the format and make sure that you follow the format correctly. It is very, very important. So when you have to cite carefully, cite important things, and don't just waste or cite excessively. It is very, very important whenever you're writing your research proposal. Other important section of research proposal. Sometimes if you are applying for some opportunities, some research grants, as well, you have to have budget. Most of the time, they are going to give you maybe an outline or a sheet or a structure or an exact format that they want you to follow. So sometimes you also have to come up with a work plan. How do you want to do the research? You can come up with Gantt chart, timeline format on how you want to actually do the research, the month, the time, and you show us how you want to different milestones and how you think you're going to achieve them. Also, for some research, instead if you are writing research proposal for ethics, you have to tell us the ethics consideration. You have to tell us how you are going to make sure you protect the participant. And they might have some form for that, maybe informed consent form or privacy notice, all sorts of things. So you have to be sure that you have addressed this part, because one of the reasons why you're writing a proposal as well is for you to be able to detail to us the ethics consideration, that you've thought through the ethics aspect of your research and you have a good understanding of how you're going to address those ethics issue, and you will be able to consider your participants and also protect yourself as a researcher. Of course, you can start thinking about possible limitation of your research. That's one of the beautiful things about proposals. If you have written a research proposal, you can think through what are the limitations of your research. Of course, how do you want to publish your study? So that's what you're going to also think about, how you're going to disseminate your findings. Are you publishing in a journal? Are you presenting it in a conference? So you can also have a session for maybe your survey. Appendix can also be there depending on the type of structure and the format that they want from you. So always remember that structure and format are very, very important when it comes to research proposal. But if there's no format, you can estimate that, okay, you should follow this, you should use this particular layout and prepare something that is important. But remember, always remember that the key layout of your research proposal should actually look like this: your title page, the introduction and background, the literature review, the research objective and question, research hypothesis if it's applicable, your method, and why is your research important. We should be able to understand that and get that information from your research proposal. So if you are looking for formats for your bachelor's, for master's and PhD thesis, this link actually has a very good format that you can follow, especially if there's no structure that they want from you, if there's no layout that they want from you, you can follow that. Or you can follow what I've explained earlier. Just make sure that you are clear on the kind of problem that you want to solve, the gap that you identify in knowledge, and how you want to do it. You also state out clearly your research objective, your research aim, and of course, you're able to tell us why your research is important, and you reference properly to show that you have a good understanding of what is happening in that particular field. I hope this video is helpful. Thank you very much for watching, and bye.